Thank you for being here. I wanted to make sure that we record this session as well. I know a few of you are here and already have committed to come on a home-based instruction. I also know a number of you are still hesitating and are here to hear more about what it looks like and what it is. I would like to say that we really will have to make a decision pretty quickly, as that has an impact for those who have not decided yet. That can have an impact on the school, on the bubbles at school. So I'll come back on that at the end of this meeting. But I just wanted to start by saying that I know a number of you are still hesitating, and hopefully this presentation today will help you to understand a little bit better what we are thinking when we talk about home-based instruction. I have present, of course, Maggie Schoon. Yes, who will give the presentation actually, because Maggie Schoon will be the coordinator for the home-based instruction and online learning. So I think there's nobody better than Maggie to talk about it. And also I wanted to thank right now Manon, who is also present and will be part of this meeting as well. And what I will tell you, it's please don't hesitate. If you have any questions along the way, put it in the chat, and then we'll go over the questions at the end, and we'll get back to you with those questions. We'll try to answer them as well as we can, and if we can't, we'll try to find the answer. So don't hesitate. When you question pop up in your mind, just go ahead and write it down in the chat room. So, and with that said, Maggie, maybe we can start. Thank you.
Okay, sounds good. So hello, everybody. I hope everybody is staying healthy at this time, and your families are well. Again, my name's Maggie Schoon, for those of you who don't know me, and I am a curriculum coordinator at the school. I was helping to facilitate the distance learning that we all participated in last spring from mid-March till the end of the school year. And we learned a lot from that process, and a lot of what we learned we're putting into place this fall. That being said, the opt-in distance learning for maternelle is slightly different than what we had last spring, in that many students, or most of our students, will be on campus, and a select few students who opt in for the distance learning experience. We're crafting something specific for those students. So I want to talk to you a little bit more about what it will look like. Of course, there's some details that are still going to be ironed out over the next couple weeks, and also as we get started. What we found last spring is that it was really important for us to stay flexible and responsive to the needs of students and families. And so if we need to make adjustments along the way, of course, we're going to do that. But here's kind of what we know so far about what the experience will be like for students that are opting in for distance learning in maternelle. So I'm going to share my screen so that I can show you my presentation here. And Magali, can you let me know if you can see my presentation?
I can see it, Maggie. Yeah.
Okay, great. So just a brief overview. And again, as Magali mentioned, we'll have time for questions and comments, and you can put those in the chat. So students that are doing distance learning at home in maternelle for the school year or for a semester, this is some of what we know so far. So they will receive instruction in French and in English every day. There'll be more instruction in French than in English to somewhat mirror the 80%, 20% ratio that students would have at school. It's not exactly the same ratio, just because preschoolers or maternal students at home are only receiving so many hours of live instruction, but there will be a majority of instruction in French and then some English instruction every day. The facilitator is going to be an EB teacher or a teacher assistant. And as you probably know from other presentations about the maternelle, all of our teachers and teacher assistants are approved to work with young students and have special training to be able to deliver instruction to young students.
Maggie, can I interrupt you? Sorry, I have one parent who asked if you could be on presentation mode. Is it possible? Excuse me.
It is in presentation mode, this.
If you just click on the present right by the share button by your picture, that should make the screen a little bigger. So if you move your cursor to the right, keep going, keep going, keep going a little bit. Yeah.
So on my screen, it's a little different.
Do you have two screens?
If you go next to share.
Yeah, if you click on the present button, that might just take you out of that mode.
Yeah, there is no present button on my screen, but I know that sometimes my Zoom is a little different than the others.
Are you in slideshow mode?
Yes.
So you're just sharing the wrong screen. You can stop sharing and then reshare the presentation. Sometimes that will work.
So I'm going to share in a different way and see if that helps.
Yep, that's perfect.
Okay. All right. So instruction in English and French every day. Teacher will be an EB teacher or a teacher assistant that already works in the maternelle, so very familiar with the maternelle. There will be also specialist subjects offered by other personnel. So for instance, Jean-Marie will have a gardening time during the week. And then we may have other specialists being offered, such as library or music time or socio-emotional learning time offered by other personnel. There's live Zoom instruction happening between 2.5 and 3 hours a day, depending on the grade level. So slightly more live Zoom instruction for kindergarten than there will be for the other preschool grade levels. There will also be, besides the live Zoom instruction, some asynchronous activities offered on the Seesaw platform. So we used that quite successfully last year. And so there'll be activities offered up that the students could complete either on their own for certain students or with the support of a family member at home when they're not on their live Zoom instruction times. The curriculum is going to be completely aligned with the on-campus instruction and the teachers. That's not to say that it's exactly the same because as we know, what we can do in person varies from what we can offer when students are at home, but it will be very much aligned so that as much as we can make the same of the curriculum, it will be. So if they're studying a certain theme in the classroom, then we will try to bring that theme into the distance learning. And most importantly, we'll be definitely concentrating on the core content. So we're going to focus on language immersion needs, learning French, and the core content that preschoolers need. So we definitely want to make the best choices so that the students' experience at home is accessing the most important parts of the curriculum for their developmental needs. And in that way, I'll also let you know that the classroom teachers that are not offering the distance learning will be coordinating with the distance learning teacher and as well as myself to make sure that we, align the content as much as possible. We definitely will offer up resources to families as we did last spring. We can offer up optional activities. We can offer up ideas of how to make the distance learning work best. And we'll definitely be a support to you as you'll be kind of co-facilitating this education with us while your child's learning at home. And then I'll be the overall coordinator, as Magali mentioned. So kind of keeping the link between Magali, you, the parents, the students, the teacher or teacher assistant that's in charge of the distance learning, and as well as the all of the teachers at the various grade levels that are providing the on-campus instruction. So I'll kind of be the link between all of those pieces to make sure that we have a streamlined program. I want to show you a couple sample schedules of what the day might look like for distance learning students. So starting the day, and again, I just want to let you know that this is not necessarily an exact schedule. This is a sample at this point. There may be slight modifications as we work on more details. So at 9 o'clock, there would be a circle time on Zoom, a welcoming of the day, a kickoff for the day, working on oral language in French, working on songs or games, introducing concepts or activities that may happen later on during the day. That's a half an hour Zoom session. And that will be where students from multiple grade levels can be together. And then there'll be a half an hour small group instruction in French. So that could be with maybe 2 to 4 students. It depends on the grade level and how many students we have in distance learning. One of the reasons that Magali said that we need to kind of narrow that down exactly how many students we're talking about, but there'll be some small group time in French where the teacher or teacher assistant will work with students on concepts and do language development and small group instruction. Then there's a break for recess and snack, which is provided by you guys at home, of course. Then there might be a half an hour of small group instruction in English. So the English teacher will be one of our EB English teachers, and English is happening by Zoom also for the on-campus students. So that this group may have their own English instruction, or they might join in with another group depending on the schedule and the grade level. Then there would be some time for one of those independent activities, right? So on Seesaw, there might be 1 or 2 activities a day that students can work on their own. So there's some time for that there. 11:30 to noon, so right before lunch, would be a story time in French. So the French teacher would read aloud a book and have discussion in French around that. This is the schedule for toute petite section, and moyenne section. So everything in the preschool. And so here we have an hour for lunch and 2 hours for nap, because on campus or at home, most of these students are still napping in the afternoon. And then in the afternoon, there would be an optional live Zoom activity. It might be with the teacher, or it might be with one of our childcare staff. It might be with one of our specialists, but this might be an opportunity for an additional touch point in French or in English around music or art, dance, story time, etc. The schedule is similar for kindergarten, but slightly different. There's still the circle time in the morning, some time for an independent activity on Seesaw, small group instruction in French and in English with a break in between. As you can see, we're trying to intersperse live Zoom moments with other moments for breaks or independent activities at home, because we know that students' attention spans at this young age level, won't last a long time on Zoom. So we're trying to break the day up into chunks for developmental appropriateness. There is still a story time before lunch. And then there's an hour and a half for lunch and recess, which is what all of our students, even in the lower grades, were receiving during distance learning time. So nice break in the middle of the day. Here the difference is because most kindergartners aren't napping in the afternoon, and they do not nap when they're on campus at school, Then they'll get another small group instruction time in French, another block for maybe an independent activity that they can complete on Seesaw, and then still an optional live Zoom in the afternoon that might revolve around one of those other enrichment areas. Now, what you don't see here is the garden and the library, the SEL, and so those will be plugged into some of these small group instruction times during the week. So, because those things won't happen necessarily every day, but they might happen once or twice a week, depending on the specialist. So that gives you a little bit of an idea of the schedule. I'm going to go to the questions, and I'm going to start off with a question here that says, our 3.5-year-old daughter doesn't nap. Any way we can join a kindergarten activity? So the kindergarten small group instruction that's happening in the afternoon will be very targeted to kindergarten skills. So if it was a story time or something like that, I'm sure adjustments could be made, but when it's small group instruction, those are actually going to be done by grade level, because what students are learning in petite section at 3 years old, or in moyenne section at 4 years old, or in kindergarten at 5 years old is actually very different. So basically the answer would be that your child wouldn't necessarily be joining a kindergarten small group, because that instruction is targeted for that grade level, but there might be other opportunities for your child to be engaged in the afternoon if they don't nap, that we would have to kind of work out when we know more about what the schedule looks like. And Magali, of course, if I am answering any of these questions incorrectly, or if you have additional things to add, please jump in.
Yeah. No, I just want to add, I mean, I talked about it on Monday already, but for preschoolers, we are mandatory to give them some resting time or napping time. So, I mean, we are following that mandatory piece. I know at home it's a little bit different, but we usually, recommend that there is a rest time for the children in the afternoon, just for their brain to kind of settle in a little bit. But then after that, we can look at a different type of activities also if needed. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna try to go in order, but if it makes more sense, I may skip around the questions, but we'll definitely get to them all. How will small group discussions be done if there's only one teacher assigned to the K class? So one of the things is that we always have we'll have a French teacher, we'll have an English teacher, and then we'll have those specialist subjects that I spoke about, and childcare staff. So depending on how the details of the schedule fit together, there might be, and also how many students we have at every grade level, there might be one small group meeting with a French teacher and another small group meeting with an English teacher, or doing library or some other activity. So even if there are a lot of students at the K level, the small groups can still be facilitated, because the students that are at home will be interacting with more than just that one French teacher. Not familiar with Seesaw. Will the activities need to be done on a tablet, or is it checklist to do offline? Okay, great question. So Seesaw is, a platform in order to be able to kind of deliver what the activities are. And the wonderful thing about Seesaw, and what we learned last spring, is that most activities, and I'll be, in charge of making sure that they're set up to be flexible, but most activities are very flexible in that they can be done either directly on the app or on the device, which could be a tablet, a computer, or an iPad, or a Chromebook, or they can be done offline. So if that makes sense. So we had a lot of students in kindergarten, but also first and second grade last year that for whatever reason, they preferred to use the app and complete their activity online, and sometimes they prefer to do it offline. Sometimes it's actually a hybrid. So it could be that they are doing an offline activity where they have to go find something or maybe it's a scavenger hunt. Now I'm thinking of kindergarten where they're starting to learn a lot about letters and sounds. So they might have a scavenger hunt where they have to go find real objects in their house that begin with a certain sound or a certain letter. But then in order to report back to the teacher what they found, they'll use the Seesaw app, so they could record a video of themselves and they could show their object and say what it is and what letter it starts with, and then upload that to Seesaw. Of course, all of the things that are done online are, you know, with the assistance and support of an adult at home, but it doesn't require a lot of time spent on the device. So they're not like consuming a lot of content on the device. They're not like watching a lot of videos on the device. They're usually doing something active and then using the Seesaw platform to be able to interact with the teacher when they're not with them live. So the teacher could look at the video that that student made and make a video comment back to them or an audio comment back to them and say, wonderful that you found these objects, and here's another idea of something you could find, for instance. So it's a way for this asynchronous interaction between teachers and students to take place. Let me scroll down. So one question is, will they have a day off on Wednesdays like in the elementary? So in first and second grade, on Wednesdays, the children participate in a lot of the enrichment activities and not so much the academic activities. And that's just because first and second grade are quite intensive in terms of academics. I mean, that's where you're really getting into formal reading and writing instruction and formal math instruction. And so the rigor of the academic activities made us feel that for students that were on 100% distance learning, that break in the middle of the week was important. Maternelle is different entirely in that everything we do in Maternelle is already, whether it's online or in person, is really developmentally appropriate. It's geared towards young children, and it's not too taxing on them. As you saw from those sample schedules, there's breaks built in throughout the day. There's a large break in the midday. There's a balance between live Zoom instruction and other types of activities. So we do not feel that, you know, a break or a day off in the middle is going to be necessary. We'd also like the opportunity to kind of pepper the week with those enrichment activities that we discussed, the SEL, the music, the library. So we don't want that all to happen on one day. We'd like to spread it out during the week for our maternal students that are learning at home. Will we receive a paper packet to supplement activities so not all the time is on screen? So I think that is kind of linked to that other question. With Seesaw, if there is something that is a paper and pencil or something that is, you know, that can be done with paper and pencil, you always have the option to print it. And then we may also do some packets like, you know, bi-monthly or monthly packets. So if there is some paper and pencil things that we know we'd like students to work on, handwriting being one that comes to the top of the mind. They'll probably have a handwriting workbook in kindergarten that they'll keep at home. But if there's other things that need to be done with paper and pencil, then we'll provide those. And then if something comes up, you know, last minute, like after a packet's handed out, but a teacher wants to offer up another activity, there is always the option to print those from Seesaw. So yes, all of the activities can be done on paper or in an active learning style, and they don't have to be done on screen. So distance learning for us is not the same as digital learning, right? The children are at home, but it's not all screen-based. It's screen-based when there's a purpose for it. How is this different from school in kindergarten at EB? What do the EB students at school do the 2.5 days they don't go to school? So we don't know exactly what the hybrid model might look like for the on-campus students in kindergarten at this time. But what we do know is that if they are spending some time at school and some time at home, that will be completely separate than what we're talking about today, which is students that are opting in for distance learning for the long haul. And the reason for that might be obvious, but I'll go over it, is that the students that will be partly on campus are going to be receiving in-person instruction from their teacher. They're going to be working on really targeted skills, and then the teacher is going to kind of construct that learning so that maybe extra practice happens at home until they're back in school with their teacher again. The situation for what we're discussing today is that the students will be at home for the duration of the school year or the semester. So in that regard, you know, we're not just doing review at home. We're actually teaching new concepts during those small group live Zoom sessions. And we want the students to be able to advance in their language skills, academically, and developmental skills, all from home. So we need to craft the curriculum and the delivery of that distance learning model much different than for the students who will be at least partially on campus. In that regard, also the teacher will be completely separate. So if there's a group of students that are on campus with a certain teacher for half of the week and at home for half of the week, they'll be followed by that same teacher all of the time. Whereas the students that we're talking about today that are opting in for distance learning 100% will be with a dedicated French and English teacher. Again, that's not going to be flipped around. They stay with that same person. So although we're aligning the content and making sure the most important skills are covered in both instances, it will be two separate programs. It's not like the kids at home will kind of just join in with the other kids on the days they're at home as well. It won't be able to work effectively for everyone in that case. What are you planning to do for kids to meet the new teachers? Magali might want to answer this question. I'm not sure if there's any in-person or onboarding option for the people that are opting for the distance learning, or if all of that will be done via Zoom in terms of meeting the teachers and building community and relationships. Can you answer that one, Magali?
Yeah. Yes, Maggie, thank you. We have a welcoming day, and we might be able to have the children coming on the welcoming day. On the onboarding, right now we haven't prepared anything for that, and especially because a number of families who choose the online options is family who don't feel comfortable to bring their children at school. So to have like then some days where we would invite the children to come on campus for an hour and a half or 2 hours might be complex for the class, for the sake of the class. So we might be able to do again a welcoming, you know, and having the children coming the day of welcoming day and meeting with the teachers who also are on the campus or might not be on campus as well, because we might have a teacher who might stay at home and not wanting to come at school. So that's where a little bit the complexity is with that specific option. But if we have, you know, the teacher who is willing to come on campus, and we have the students and the families who are willing to come on campus, at least on welcoming day, we will arrange that.
And if that doesn't happen and it will be, you know, 100% virtual, we'll definitely be constructing the first couple weeks of school in order to establish those relationships and establish that community. Those of you who had students with us last spring had already spent a lot of time in person with their teachers when we transitioned to distance learning. And this is a different situation where we're starting the year with a new teacher and we don't know that person necessarily in person yet. So there'll be a lot of time crafted around building community and building relationships so that the students feel comfortable with the teacher, you know, during these live Zooms. And there also might be moments, there certainly will be moments where the students can have one-on-one interactions with the teachers as well. So while the majority of things will happen in whole group or small group, there will be times, especially at the beginning of the year, when the teacher can interact with students individually and certainly as needed. Are you planning to share a list of kindergartners that will do home-based learning? Is there going to be just one group, or will there be multiple groups? Well, I think that's what Magali alluded to at the beginning of the meeting, right, Magali? We don't have the exact list yet.
Well, right now we had shared a list, and I know a number of you contacted me after Monday who are still very hesitant, and so Of course, as soon as we are clear on who those students are, we will share the other list of students. So we are planning on sharing the list. There is no problem, but and I know it's a lot of pressure for you parents to make a decision, but it's also a decision that impacts us a lot. Because it has to do with, for us, knowing if we add one more bubble that will stay at home, and that means we will have to reshuffle and change the other bubbles of the students who are staying on campus. So we are a little bit right now in a quandary with that. And I hope that answered to the question.
Yeah, I think the next question we also did answer also was about welcome day and onboarding days. So I think most likely the stay-at-home students won't participate in those because, again, of the preferences and limitations of the teachers and the families that are choosing that option, but there's some flexibility there. Will iPads be available for the children? Yes, the school loans out devices for those families that would like to borrow a device from the school instead of using their own device. So either one of those is available to you. What will happen to the online pod once the school opens up or after the fall? Since this kindergarten class is 6 kids, will it become its own class or will it be dispersed within the other K1 to K4? I'm not sure I understand this question because if it's an online pod, even when the other students are back in class, the online pod will continue. Magali, can you?
I think it has to do with the period, because as we are talking about, it's usually you will commit for one period at the time, so it's about 6 weeks, I think, or 7 weeks, and then after the fall you can the break in the fall you can choose if you want to come back on the campus, and that is a good question. Technically, the idea is like when everybody comes back on campus, you stay with the pod that you were online. That's the idea, but it might be realistic or it might not be realistic. I think we have parents that are committed that as long as elementary school is not starting and things are not getting better, they will not bring their children back at school. And then I think it concerns more parents who are still hesitant and maybe think we try one period and we'll see afterwards. So technically we would like to keep the pod together, and if that pod is coming back to school, they come back together to school, but we might have to readjust, I have to say, after 6 or 7 weeks. Once we see a little bit better what's happening, we all have to stay flexible with that and look a little bit where we are going.
Okay, yeah, that's great, thank you. Yeah, so that was at the end of a period, yeah, okay. I have a question about should I buy a printer? We'll do our best to make sure that things are available to you in advance that need to be, but I will say that, sometimes things can be offered up, again, on Seesaw or even as optional activities that might come after a packet's been distributed. So if you're asking me, should I go buy a printer, which is what this question says, I would say yes. I think it's a good idea because then you're just not limited. If we send out something extra or we send out an optional resource, then you have the ability to go ahead and utilize that. But I mean, it's up to you, but I would say that's probably a good idea in this setting. When do we need to decide if we want distance learning just for the fall of 2020 or the entire academic year? Magali?
That's a good question. I would like to say as soon as possible, but I think the most important at this point for me, it's already for all of you to decide if you want to do the first 6 weeks or you don't want to do the first 6 weeks remote learning. And then for the academic year, again, I think we are in such a special year that all of us need to be flexible a little bit and see what's happening. So I would say probably we will have to ask you again the question as we get closer to the end of the 6 weeks, and then that means you would recommit for 6 weeks at the time. And I think we need to go increasingly with a little bit what's happening. But I think the most important for all of us and for you too, it's as much as possible to stay flexible, and we will have to adjust a little bit along the year.
Right. The next question I already answered. It might be nice to have one-on-one Zoom with the teacher to begin to meet the students. So I think I mentioned that would be part of what we would be doing in the first weeks.
That would be
Interesting.
considered like onboarding, right, Maggie?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Interestingly, what we found out last spring is that some students were intimidated when they were one-on-one with the teacher and much more relaxed and comfortable when there was one or two other students in the live Zoom. So I will just put that caveat out that we're sensitive to that, and we're going to do whatever works best, you know, for students and families to make sure that we can connect with kids in the best way possible. There's a question about who are the teachers. We don't know at this time. We can't announce the teachers because, as Magali mentioned, we still have the numbers that are changing. And so the more people that do distance learning, the less people we have on campus. And so that creates a lot of shuffling around with the class lists and also with the teaching assignments. So we don't know exactly who the teachers will be, but again, they're all either teachers or teacher assistants that are already at EB. Did we get the waiver for K? Is it official?
Okay, so I will talk about that one. We are not talking about the waiver for K. We are trying to have the K coming in preschool under the licensing. So it's not a waiver, it's something different. The waiver is for the elementary school, which would allow also kindergarten to come at school and on campus, but right now we have not got that waiver. For licensing, we are still actively working. We are coming up with different ideas. As I explained on Monday, it's a little bit complex. We are working with the fire marshal, we are working with the licensing and also the city. So just to give you an example, yesterday we received a report from the fire marshal that was not very good yesterday morning. And yesterday evening we have another fire marshal who contacted us and told us, you know, they will be looking on how to help us, but they feel like they are stuck right now also with the city who is not moving certain things quickly enough. So that's a little bit where we are, and we are looking, I mean, as I explained on Monday, what we hope is to be able to get more space licensed so we can then receive the kindergarten students on campus. But it's a hard work. That's all I can say.
Yeah. That next question is the same thing. Yeah. So would you be able to consider having the teachers meet with the parents also? Oh, yes, for sure. That way we can get the platform to ask our questions, gauge what the teacher's expectations are before school starts. Oh, okay. I reading the whole question now, I see it's slightly different.
I'm sorry, Maggie, may I interrupt for the previous question that was skipped? What we're trying to understand, if you don't get the waiver, do we all go to distance learning in kinder? I think that's the question we're all asking.
Okay. Yes. So right now, yes. If we don't get the permission from licensing in 2 weeks, we will have to go back more on a distance learning type of teaching, and that will be looking more about like it is at the lower school, where we will still allow the students to come like probably twice a week on campus. They are doing that at the elementary school. The students will be allowed to come at least two times on campus, and we will work on that. I'm pretty optimistic that we will get the licensing on board. I mean, we are looking at a lot of options, and sadly it's slow right now, but I think once I can get authorization from the fire marshal, and there are a few authorizations that I think I can get, we can probably get license. I'm not worried so much about licensing. I think that's what I want to say. I'm much more concerned right now and waiting for the city and the fire marshal. So that's why we are doing 2 weeks of onboarding for kindergarten who are coming on campus. Those 2 weeks will be for the children who would be on the hybrid model. That means for those 2 weeks they would come every day on campus for about an hour and a half or 2 hours. That's something I will discuss with the teachers and clarify. Probably 2 hours, it's easier. but and we will get back to you. But right now, yes, the worst case scenario, if we cannot get either the hybrid model or the full-time on campus model, that would be to go back on distance learning.
Sorry to interrupt, and thank you.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. So in terms of having parents meet with the teachers that are providing the distance learning, yes, that will happen. Not only will it happen at the beginning of the school year, as it would in any situation, but also we're thinking, you know, every week that there might be a short time for the parents to talk with the teacher and kind of get an overview of, you know, what the skills are working on that week, you know, how things are going to go, and be able to have interchange.
Maggie, I just want to say something about that. I just want you to be aware that our teachers have not officially started to work. A lot are working already, and you can see even on this meeting, on this Zoom meeting, I have several teachers who are present, and I want to thank them for that. But our teachers have not officially worked yet, and they will start on Friday. We haven't gone over a lot of details, a lot of those programs. Some of them are discovering what we are talking about right now. So we will do our best. Of course, you will receive communication before school start. Maybe the welcoming day we will have, you know, if we are not doing in person on campus, it will be at home, and we can do some little Zoom meetings with you individually. But before that, I want to say, just do not expect to have more information before the welcoming day, basically.
Thank you for clarifying that. This next question, I think, is for you, Magali. Am I understanding that if we choose home-based now, we might not have to wait until January to switch to in-person?
Yes, we will go 6 weeks. 6 weeks. It's like a periods increment, right? We have one period, then we touch base and we look at where we are at, and then we go for another period. So we'll go by period. It will be easier for everybody.
So after the first period, next question.
Noth, you want to say something?
Yeah, sorry, I apologize because we mentioned it on Monday at the town hall, and we said January, so
yeah,
maybe we'll make sure we tell everybody about this. It's a big change.
Okay, thank you. If all distance learning kids come back to school after 6 weeks or after the first period, which is September, October, up to that first October break, do you have space for full-time on campus for all? I think that mostly depends on what Magali mentioned earlier, is what is the on-campus offering, right? And where are we with the space? But can you speak to that more, Magali?
Yes. So yeah, it will be, I mean, by that time we will know where we're at. I hope. If we don't, I'm probably not working at TB anymore. I'm hoping by that time we know, and yes, basically we will, you know, welcome the children who are coming back, and if it's a whole pod, we will welcome back the students on campus. That's the idea.
Yeah, so the 6 weeks is just those periods that we talked about, right? So at EB, instead of, sometimes we talk about semesters or trimesters, but really we have 5 periods in the year, and each one is separated by a vacation. So the first period is September and October, then we have an October break. The next period is November and December, and you have a break in the winter holidays, January, February, then you have February break, March, April, and then May, June. So what they're saying now, in clarifying from Monday, is that after the first period, when we come on to the first vacation at the end of October, we can reevaluate if people are staying on distance learning or if they're transitioning to something else. If more people move to distance learning, will you have enough space for kinder 5 days a week? If you don't get the waiver, does the kinder go to distance learning for all? I think this question was already answered by Magali, but that person can jump in if it's not.
Yeah, I think one of the things was if we get more if we get more distance learning students, remote learning students, will we be able to have, like, if we go from 4 pods to 3 pods, would we get the possibility to have the 3 pods going full time? And right now, again, I'm in the same, it's the same response that I said earlier. We are working on those, on licensing and with the city and the fire marshal to see that. So right now I can say it doesn't change anything if I have 3 pods in kindergarten, or you know, if I have 1 more pod or 1 less pod, basically, or 1 bubble or not.
Okay. This next question is, if we start out doing in person, can we switch to the home base? Would that also be at the period marker, the vacation marker, Magali, that you could go the opposite direction?
That is a scenario I didn't think about, so I have no answer. I'm sorry. I don't have an answer right now about that scenario. I'll be looking into it, but right now I do not have an answer. I'm sorry.
Although I seem to recall that back in the spring when Mehdi had a town hall, that he did mention that people could move in the other direction. But yeah, we have to look into that. The school calendar is available on the eb.org website, so you'll be able to see where these period markers that we're talking about and all the school vacations. That's on the website. With distance learning, will there be possibilities to make adjustments if something's not working? Of course, yes, that's my job. And that was my job all of last spring. In fact, starting from mid-March, when we went into distance learning to the end of the school year, we made quite a few adjustments, not only in maternelle, but in all of the divisions. And that was all in an intense effort to get feedback and be responsive to the needs of students and families. We sent surveys, we responded to emails, we had in-person meetings and town halls, and we constantly adjusted things in our distance learning offering throughout the spring, and we'll also be adjusting this fall, not only for this specific group of the opt-in distance learning, but for everything we're doing. This is not an easy task to take the way you normally run a school and run it in a totally different way, and now we're running it in like 3 different ways. So believe me, it's difficult, but that's our job, and that's definitely what we're here to do, to listen and to learn from what we're doing and make sure that we do make adjustments to fit the needs of students and families. You may have some folks switching to home base if numbers were really bad. Not a question, but something to think about. Yes, certainly. I mean, I thought of that as we were discussing that. I mean, that's what's so hard to answer some of these questions to you all, because some of them we just simply don't know ourselves, right? We don't know exactly what the future holds for the health situation, for the government guidelines, for the county guidelines. So, but yeah, it certainly requires a lot of flexibility on everyone's part. For non-French speaking kids that are new to EB, would the online teachers have the bandwidth to work and accommodate these children? Yes, so all of our teachers in maternelle are very much trained and specialized in working with French learners and students that are new to French and that do not have French at home. When the students are in the home environment 100% and not on campus, of course, that French immersion aspect makes it more challenging. So this is one of the things that we worked very hard on last year across all of the grade levels and divisions in our distance learning program. When I talked about the small groups, I talked about small groups by grade level, but there'll be also opportunities during the week to have small groups by language ability, so that the French learners that are on a similar footing, new to French or no French speaking adult at home, would be together in the same group, and they'll be receiving targeted instruction to help them develop their French skills, different than those that already speak French at home or are further along. So that differentiation is really important to us, and will be accommodated.
And Maggie, I want to add that also in kindergarten, for example, the teachers are using a very specific program that is for non-French speakers. It's a pretty fun program, and I think it's a program that works also pretty well online. So it's a French for French learners, basically. It's a very targeted program.
Yeah, specialized curriculum for that. So I think we made it to all the questions, and we're coming up on an hour, almost an hour that we've been together. So I think that we'll kind of start to wrap up here and make some closing remarks. Oh, one more came in. And also thank you very much for your kind words about the work that we're doing to put this together. And it's definitely in partnership with you all as well. Thank you. If kids go from live to distance, can they retain their pod location so they can swing back in when they come back? It would help them have continuity of relationships and COVID safety. I'm not sure that that could be guaranteed, that if they went from in-person to online, that they could come back to that same pod because it would be months later, and it would just probably have to depend on the numbers, Magali, right? I'm not sure that that could be assured at this point. It could be considered, but certainly not guaranteed, I would think.
Yes, what I want to say, it's like the back and forth will be very difficult for the students, for the safety of the bubbles. So that's what we want to discourage. It's the going back and forth. So that's why we are trying to create a bubble or a pod that is at home and remote learning, and that pod is staying together, because the pods that are on campus, the bubbles that are on campus become like that pretty, I don't want to say a sacred space, but it's really a bubble, and we are trying not to bring anybody else in it. Also, our numbers, we are topping most of our classroom to 10, 11 students, but maximum 11. It would be between 10 and 11, and we don't want really to go over that. So we are discouraging the back and forth. That's what we want to say.
Great. Well, thank you guys. Thank you all for being here.
So, yeah. Maggie?
Yeah, I was just looking at this last question that came in. Thank you all for being here. And of course, you know, Magali and I can be available to you if you have other things that come up after this point. Is there anything else?
Yeah, I would like. So I need to stress out that we really need to know, you know, what direction we want to take, and we also need you to commit to at least those 6 weeks if you choose to do the remote learning. I know, again, I know a group of you have already done it, and I thank you for that. Another group is still hesitant, but at this point we cannot keep that flexibility and that unknown, because it has an impact on also the students who are at school. So I really need to make sure that all of you can commit. We were looking at with Manon, well, I'm back tonight, and then I thought, well, the night is important to have for you to think, but we really need an answer tomorrow, because again, it has an impact on our bubbles. It has an impact on the students who are coming and already committed to come back, and it has an impact also on our teachers. So I really, you know, thank you for. I know it's a very difficult decision, and it's in those challenging times. It's not easy, but at this point, I mean, we tried to wait as long as we could, but right now we need a commitment, and I need that commitment by tomorrow morning. So if you can send me an email letting me know by tomorrow morning, the earliest, I would say the latest 9 a.m., letting me know if you choose to have your child staying online or going back and you know, going on the campus. I will really appreciate, because it's holding back our work at this point.
Magali.
Yes.
Sorry, this is Max. And this is correct both for the kindergarten, where you don't know if you're bringing kids in school or they're staying online. Is it right?
Can you ask your question again? Sorry, Max.
So what I'm a little unclear is that I understand the home commitment has to be made for kids who are in all the grades other than kindergarten. Because in kindergarten, it seems that there's still uncertainty whether the kid's going to be in school or they're going to be all distance learning.
Yes.
So my
Yeah.
question is that, do we, even for kindergarten, we still need to make this commitment?
Yes,
Basically, we need, okay.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Thank you for asking for the clarification. Yeah.
Magali, this is Paula.
Yes.
I have a family situation where my husband and I are in two separate camps, and I want to stay married more than I want to send my daughter to school. We are seeing nobody, really, very, very limited. We don't have a pod with anybody else. So I was asking the question, if I go to school and we panic, essentially, and we leave and we go to distance learning, I will not see any other children. And I don't know if for the kindergarten this is an issue. I would retain the pod in that I wouldn't commit to seeing anybody else. Is this too much to ask? Because really, we don't know. We are now coming to school. We are in class. We are in K1, I think. And if we decided not to come to school, I would not form a pod with anybody else, because I would just want to stay safe, and I would hope to then rejoin the pod. And that's a really big decision for me, because we really don't want to see anybody else.
Okay, so excuse me, I want to make sure I understand the question. So your question is like, you would have your child starting in one pod, which would be
yes,
K1.
and if I'm in a live pod now. I'm coming to school. I'm in the K1 class, and in fact, I'm with Max, and thank you for that. If we basically decide the risk is too bad, the numbers are bad, and we pull Sophia out and we go to distance learning, for example, or if I tell you tomorrow morning that I'm in distance learning, is it possible to even keep the pod? The benefit of that for you is that you would know that I'm in that class anyway for the next semester, right? Okay. You've already placed us, right? And so you wouldn't have to put me in another class.
I did place you.
Because I'm coming to school, because I asked to come. I'm just watching the numbers and I'm getting worried. Yeah.
I mean, number one, what I want to say is like, we might, because of the hesitation of so many, that's why I need to have a commitment today. We might have to re-look at the pods. So, we might have to.
Okay, gotcha.
The pods. That's where I'm concerned. Now, I want to be clear. I mean, of course, if there is like a situation where in the family setting things are changing, or there is some stress about being online, being at school, we'll figure it out a way. I mean, we don't want parents to keep their child at school if they feel like there's a situation, either at home, or there is a case in the family, or a person at risk. We don't want you to feel like you are challenging, your own family situation because of that. We need on that one, and we need to be flexible. If there is a situation that is not going well, or a stressful situation because of COVID, we cannot push you to come to school, to bring your child to school, and put your whole family situation in danger. So I want to clarify that. We'll figure it out a way. I cannot I cannot promise exactly what way it will be. I mean, but for sure your child would continue to have instruction. I want you to be aware also that in those bubbles, the idea we do those bubbles, it's because if there is a case in one of those bubbles, a COVID case that is coming out, the idea is that we might have to shut down that bubble, and that whole bubble is going into distance learning for a period of time. So that's why we are trying to keep like little numbers in those bubbles, and try to be consistent with the children who are in those bubbles. Because if there's again a case, we know that if there is a case in one specific classroom, it affects also the other students, and we need to take all the precautions to make sure that everybody is safe. So in that moment, we will have to maybe shift that specific bubble into an online or remote learning bubble for a period of time. I want to clarify that. And I don't want to be dramatic into that. I don't want to scare you or anything like that, but I just want you to know that what we are trying to do, and that's why we are keeping those bubbles so preciously once they are done, because we want to make sure that we foster those bubbles and we bring the most little risk in the bubble, and we can keep everybody safe. So I don't want to worry anybody, but I just want you to make sure. And I also want to be clear that, if you have any cases of worries in your family about COVID and you choose to take your child and go online, we just applaud your decision and we thank you, and we will figure it out how to do that.
Magali, I have a quick follow-up questions on that. And I know it would be an absolute nightmare for coordination, but a lot of parents that I talk to at EB are in a similar situation as the person that just asked the question, in the sense that their kids and themselves are not seeing anyone. The parents, the kids are home, pretty much completely locked down. Would there be a possibility, obviously not now, but as you do those 6-week periods, to maybe look into having parents or families that have similar profiles be in one pod? So again, I think a lot of us are not comfortable coming in because we're, afraid that the virus might get in from parents that go to work because they have, jobs they need to attend. But I feel like a big portion of us are just working from home, have our kids at home. Would there be, again, depending how long we're in this, to potentially have a pod with families that are in the same situation, just to lower the risk of having that pod being affected?
I'm not sure I understand correctly. So
well, I think what she's saying is that there's some families on this call that are being super strict. And it sounds like what you're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, is if you were all in a pod with each other, you would make a very strict contract with each other to not be doing anything outside of that group, meaning you would feel comfortable sending kids to school knowing that those kids are not participating in other activities or seeing neighborhood friends or doing anything else.
That's exactly it.
Yeah, and could we try to somehow link together a pod that was kind of on that strict contract, because it would allow you to feel more comfortable sending the kids to school, but then also not necessarily just be in a pod with any family who may not be following the same guidelines as you?
Maggie, that's beautiful. This is Paula. I was the one who asked the question. Okay. And I think really, yes, because I think we're all, and I saw the chat, people were saying, can we get the parents' information as soon as possible? And I know that it's a circular problem because until we tell you what we want to do, you can't figure out what you're going to do. But the issue is really where the pod breaks is the risk level of each parent, or if somebody like is a nurse or a doctor or whatever, and they have to go to work, right? And so part of what I think is going to cause some panic when we go to school, because I am signed up to go to school, but we are super, super strict. We don't even see grandparents, is the risk level of the other families in the pod, right? I know 3 of the families in the pod from EB, and I trust them with, driving me, or I trust them personally, and I know that they will do what is right. But if we have, say, for example, a family in our pod that sees their grandparents, and the grandparents are not mask wearers, and they say, well, I can't make my mother-in-law wear a mask, then I am going to pull my daughter out of school. But you have to have some pretty personal conversations. And I know, but that's where that was in my head, right? I get to school and I find out that, somebody's traveling to another state to see for a wedding or something. I haven't seen my father, who lives in Italy, in 8 months, and I do not plan to travel, for example.
Yeah.
I haven't seen grandparents.
Yeah, and just to add to that, like for us, that would be a perfect family. We'd love to, be in the pod with, because we're in a similar situation.
I mean, it's a valid question because, the school can't make everyone in the school do something they're not comfortable with. But what you're saying is, if you opt into a certain contract to be putting those families together, it's an interesting question. I don't know what you think, Magali, if that's even possible.
Yeah, I mean, it's a totally interesting question. I'm not opposed to it. I'm just trying to figure out how to make it happen.
At
And
this point,
make
also.
it happen.
And we are causing the problem because we're not telling you what we're doing, so you can't tell us who is in class with us. So
Yeah,
I
it's
do
a little bit of
I do
a vicious
recognize that.
cycle, right? Yeah.
Manon, wait, Manon, we don't hear you, Manon. Maybe you have a brilliant idea and I'm not hearing it.
Oh, now she's frozen. Oh.
Can you, Manon? We don't hear you.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah. That's
Sorry, my connection's a little not great always, so I apologize. But Maggie referred it as a moral contract, and there'll be some guidelines for parents. It's very tricky for us to really, I mean, I trust so many of our EB parents to be so responsible, and myself, very careful, but you never know how other families are gonna, there's a different level of, some family is very worried, some family are a little more relaxed about seeing other people, and so it's very tricky for us to enforce this, and because there's really, and it's about trust, but it comes with knowing people, and so yeah, it's a big question, and I'm not sure we really have an answer at this point.
Sorry,
Thank
just jump. I know that we're ending soon, but just jumping in as I think that's why I asked to get directories of people, because it's really, I can't imagine how you guys at EB would be able to even navigate that. I tried to set up pods in the springtime, and I didn't feel comfortable with the choices that other parents in my class were making for the most part. And we were able to find one family that was okay. So I think if we all have these discussions, and then maybe we can have some, at-home learning meetups for some social interaction, or even if it's social distance in the park, I think that would be lovely. But I can't imagine it would be very, very difficult to have everyone be comfortable, I think, even though it's a great idea and I wish it could work.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting point. Those of you that do decide to do distance learning certainly will be connected to each other and could pursue some in-person social interactions without participating on an on-campus, pod, in between yourselves. Because obviously anyone that's choosing distance learning is in that category of people that is being extremely cautious. So I think we'll take into account everything, but yeah, it's really tough to find a perfect solution for every family.
Sorry, I'm sorry. With that in mind, I'm sorry to end up a little bit with an unclarity at that unclarity at that level. But I want to thank you all for your time, your commitment. If you are, please send me an email by tomorrow by 9 a.m. If you have this type of struggle that we discussed, we just discussed, maybe mention it in the email so it gives me some awareness. And I know with my and we already kind of let know some of the teachers that we might have to review a number of bubbles, especially in kindergarten. I think I might have to review a few things. So just give me a feedback when you send me an email telling me I'm committed to that or I'm not committed to that, but here's my worry. And again, I forgot to mention, but to put Sarah Nicholas on the copy. It's S. Nicholas or Manon Johnson. Just put somebody else in the copy of that. Maybe Manon, because Manon is here. So tomorrow we can go over all your emails and look at them again. So send me the email by 9 a.m. and put Manon in copy. So and put your concern in, and we'll try to tackle that. Okay. I wish you all a good evening. I thank you, Maggie, for your presentation and your time. Thank you, Manon. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, the teachers and peers, for being present. Really appreciate your time, all of you. And we need to continue those discussions. We need to, as I said, stay flexible and adapt to the new situations. This morning I said, and I'm preparing an email. You will receive it, but I feel like Peter Pan, Peter Pan going on Neverland. I mean, I'm not sure what that new world is looking like, but we are doing our best to make it happen. To have the best world for your children and to offer the best, the best school we can offer under the circumstances. So stay healthy, everybody, and we'll keep in touch. Have a good evening, and hopefully I hear from you by tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye, thank you.